We have Stupendous Wave. We've got like 4 videos of the Stupendous Wave. So many wedding rings. Alright, so this first one is why Obi-Wan constantly uses forbidden moves in lightsaber combat. I do not remember what you would classify as a forbidden move. I think the only lightsaber combat style that was really forbidden was Vapard was heavily restricted because of how most people that tried to learn it fell to the dark side, and then Xian, I believe, was restricted because it used emotions to fuel the combat. Like, it's a Sith lightsaber form, I believe. Unless I'm mixing up the names. It was Juyo. Xian's Form 5, that's one. Oh, it's Xian slash Gemso. Oh, yeah. So, it was Juyo I'm thinking of, Form 7, which Vapard is a variation of Juyo. There you go. Alright, so I guess we'll see what he has to say. Other than it's muted. Yeah, I don't need to.
Why did the Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi constantly break the Jedi code when in lightsaber combat? Greetings again, Acolytes, and welcome back.
That's... How do you break the Jedi code in lightsaber combat?
Back to the archives. Kenobi is known for being a stickler for the Jedi code. As a Padawan, he often butted heads with Qui-Gon, who was looser with the standard of Jedi protocol when the situation called for it. This trend continued into Kenobi's knighthood and mastery when he ran aground with Anakin for the same reasons. But even after the fall of the Jedi, Obi-Wan still preserved the Jedi way within his heart and made sure to follow as many of its precepts as possible in a post-Jedi galaxy. Yet, all throughout his life before and during the Clone Wars, we have noticed a strange reoccurrence. Obi-Wan is seen breaking the Jedi code when in lightsaber combat and frequently attempting to use illegal moves and getting away with it.
Illegal moves. Huh?
Although Dooku once described sensing Kenobi in the Force as a gateway into a peaceful meadow, it seems that Obi-Wan has a bit of a darker side to him. A side which only shows itself when his emotions get high during a duel. And it seems that although Obi-Wan is fully...
Yeah, bro. His emotions in that smoking weed, getting high, bro.
aware of it, he does make mistakes in lightsaber combat and frequently breaks the Jedi code in order to beat his enemies. So why is this? And what
shows the one instance that we can really see that he does that. Obviously, he was angry with Maul because he had just killed Qui-Gon. That makes sense here.
What is the lesson that we can learn from Obi-Wan Kenobi? The first thing we should cover is the Jedi approach to combat and the various marks of contact in a lightsaber duel. The Jedi, as you know, are all about preserving life as much as possible.
No, you'll have to rewatch the VOD if you want to get my thoughts. And if this is EU-based enough, then I will put it on my YouTube. But I'm sort of on the fence with some of how much of these I'm going to put on YouTube.
And being as merciful in combat as the situation allows it. Oftentimes, they are encouraged to disarm or disable an opponent while keeping their harder emotions in check. There are specific moves which directly navigate this, such as Sun Gem, which is the way of slicing an opponent's weapon or damaging it in a way that forces them to drop it.
What's Sun Gem? Huh? Okay. So it has an EU tab. So it's basically any type of movement that would destroy or disarm the weapon of an opponent, but the objective was not to physically harm the wielder. It's a sort of state that Form 1 duelists I need to keep the lightsaber combat is up. Practitioners of Chisho tried to keep up. It's the basic form that is the base which every other lightsaber form is based off of, taught by the Jedi. Alright, so it's basically Form 1.
This is often the most valuable kind of move for a Jedi. If not possible, the next best option is the Cho Mei, which is the way of severing the hand holding the weapon. Although Luke disagrees, this would...
Cho Mei. What is with all these weird names? I don't remember a lot of these by name, so... There we go. That also has a very brief canon tab that I immediately switched to the EU tab. It's cutting off an opponent's weapon hand. I don't know why they need a specific name just for like one action. Because it really depends on what form of lightsaber combat you're using to really say, okay, well, it's based on this form, but any cut to that body is a marker of that body part getting sliced, I guess.
was considered a merciful way to end combat, but if no...
Merciful by the Sith. Ew, I don't like looking at
options
this.
to end combat peacefully present themselves, and an opponent must be killed, which is always a last resort. The Jedi were allowed 2 marks of contact to accomplish this goal. The first was known as the Shiak, a precise thrust directly through the center of the chest, a quick, clean killing blow, which would theoretically cause the least amount of pain. This was the preferred method that the Jedi Council always encouraged every Jedi to take. If possible, the less savory option would be known as the Sai Cha.
The Sai Cha, I'm just gonna look at these to refresh my memory. Wikipedia is still good for these as far as things go. So... Shiak, Shiak. Stabbing an opponent through the chest. Jedi usually stabbed in the leg or arm, while Sith preferred to stab opponents in the head, chest or stomach. So that could still be a non-lethal stab. And they're really just names for different places that they're gonna strike at with certain things. Yeah, good example is playing Force Unleashed recently is Vader stabbing Starkiller through the stomach was a Shiak move. Yeah. I mean, he's done enough research that it sounds good on the surface level when you check what the names are and whatever. Sai Cha was a beheading. But, I mean... I don't know why these would be considered illegal by the Jedi. He hasn't said that yet.
Way of relieving an opponent's head from their shoulders. While decapitation was an unfortunate way to end a conflict, it was still preferred since it was still quick and relatively painless. With that said, there are 2 lightsaber marks of contact which are forbidden for a Jedi to use on living beings, and they both just so happen to be Kenobi's specialties. The first is known as the Sai Talk. This is
Sai Talk.
is what Battlemaster Scarch Vanook wrote in the Jedi Path about this. Sai Talk slices an entire body into 2 halves. This act is rightfully considered barbaric, and evidence of the furious emotions of the dark side. Unless you're fighting droids, no student of mine should ever use a Sai Talk. The second is the Mo Ki, which is the act of slicing through multiple limbs at once.
What was that again?
Fighting droids, no student of mine should ever use a Sai Talk. The second is the Mo key, which is the
Mo key. I've got so many tabs open now. Yeah, cutting off
act of slicing through multiple limbs at once. To slice through a leg, called a cho mak, is already a move which is discouraged according to Master Vonk. There is no situation in which a Jedi should perform a Mo key, given that many other options should be at their disposal. Tragically though, a Padawan Obi-Wan actually agrees with him by writing this: "I can't see ever using such a mark." But in fact, Obi-Wan would proceed to attempt to use both of these moves at various points in his life. The first and the most obvious time when he used a Psi Talk was against Maul on Naboo, just like the Master stated, which is that it's evidence of furious emotions.
Which was, you can see the circumstances and the context for that, obviously. Of like, yes, okay, but then he's still lauded as killing a Sith, and there's no way he would have survived if he didn't do that. If he tried to be merciful to Maul, Maul would have killed him. We know this.
Obi-Wan was vengeful over how Maul had gutted Qui-Gon, although his rage unbalanced him and caused him to get tossed down the pit. We can see Obi-Wan's anger returning when he spots Qui-Gon's lightsaber. As soon as he made the leap over Maul's head, there was plenty of time for him to choose to attempt to perform a Psi Cha instead, decapitating the Sith.
So we can see in this, if we go frame by frame,
Plenty of time for him to choose to attempt to perform a Psi Cha instead.
So if we see how he grabs the lightsaber, he has grabbed it. Where has he grabbed it? He's grabbed it in his hand here. And then as he goes through and spins around, he did not have time to step back, in which Maul would have sliced him, and then prepare a strike to hit Maul. The more efficient way to actually kill him was, in this case, to slice him in half. It was a more fluid movement, and it didn't give Maul that fraction of a second longer to be able to react and respond. Especially seeing as how powerful Maul is from other sources. It was actually not practical to use the stabbing maneuver, the Psi Talk. This is a Psi Talk. Which one was it? His saber hand was a little bit low to successfully perform a Psi Cha. And yeah, the Shiak move would have given Maul too much time to react. So practically, he made the best decision for the moment. Especially knowing how even a fraction of a second, Maul would have defeated him if he'd gotten a little bit more time. Because he landed inside Maul's guard, surprising him, and slash across from the closest point from where the lightsaber was.
Cha instead, decapitating the Sith Lord and ending the duel that way. Maul's lightsaber was down at his side while he was stunned, and Obi-Wan was moving extremely quickly.
Obi-Wan was moving extremely quickly, but you gotta remember how much Darth Maul moves quickly too, of like, yes, he moved quickly, but that doesn't mean the wasted movement of stepping back. I gotta make sure the lightsaber's maybe in my other hand to be able to have a successful strike maneuver sort of thing would work. It makes much more sense to go, alright, actually no, it was in his right hand, which the camera's mirrored, but it makes much more sense to go down, you've got it on this side and slice across, rather than Oh, I've landed. Oh, I've got to go back. Now I have to strike. It's impractical. In that moment, he would have been dead if he did that. Moving on.
Reason for Kenobi not to take this option, but instead, the Padawan wanted to watch the life fade out of Darth Maul's eyes. He wanted to make sure that the Sith had time to know that he had been killed by a Padawan. So
Where's the source for this? Where's the source for that he wanted to see the life drain from Maul's eyes?
Jedi Obi-Wan instead gave in to anger and bisected his opponent. Now, we are never told that the Jedi Council ever reprimanded Obi-Wan for doing this. At the time, they were so stunned at the return of the Sith and that they were still in existence.
But the Jedi Council also would have been like, wow, this Padawan defeated a Sith. And that's pretty much how they were. And they would know how dangerous the Sith were, and they would be like, to my thinking and understanding, they were like, well, you did so well defeating a Sith.
Kenobi was mainly commended for slaying Maul. The exact methods he used were brushed under the rug, but it seems that Obi-Wan had time to reflect on his actions, and we can see that once he starts practicing Surisu and choosing to be more defensive in combat, he switches up his blade work dramatically. While still incorporating some offensive maneuvers of Ataru, Kenobi chooses to instead go for disarmament rather than dismemberment. While it isn't actually explored in words, we can definitely tell by the way Obi-Wan fights in the Clone Wars that he was ashamed of the way that he had killed Maul. He tries to clean up his lightsaber combat, fight fairly, and he constantly tries to preserve as much of the opponent's body as possible.
I don't think this was a follow-on from killing Darth Maul like that. I think it's just a further progression of the direction that he was already going. Because he was a Padawan, and then he became a knight, but then he also gained more experience in fighting, and it was also a completely different type of enemy that he faces here. So the majority of the time in the Clone Wars, he was facing blaster bolts, not lightsabers, and Surisu is the best defense against blaster bolts, which can also protect the troops under his command, as well as himself, which is different to your 2v1ing or 1v1ing a Sith Lord, especially when you have someone like Dooku that specializes in lightsaber combat. Oh, I've got the forms here. Which was it? Yeah, when he was specializing in Makashi, which is Form 2, the one specifically for lightsabers dueling other lightsabers. Surisu wasn't practical for that type of fight. But when it's against a lot of droids trying to shoot you, Surisu's the best option.
Several points in his fights with Ventress, and during his duel with Pre Vizsla, where he has an opening to make a strike, but chooses not to.
Okay, so you showed the clip of the movie. Are you going to show this clip of Pre Vizsla? Because I don't remember it.
Instead of taking opportunity attacks, Obi-Wan constantly tries to force his opponent to surrender by disarming them, and then using a well-placed force push or a kick.
That's also because, if you're using the Pre Vizsla example, I don't remember it too well, but Pre Vizsla isn't force sensitive, and he's not trained to use the force. Or if he is force sensitive, he's not trained anyway. He just swings the lightsaber around. So Obi-Wan knows that he doesn't have to kill him, or Kenobi himself will die. As such, Ventress, he had this love-hate relationship with her. Where he didn't really want to kill her, but then also she's so evil. But he always falls back on Surisu later on as a natural progression of the way he goes, and then he mixes in other forms later.
But all of that effort goes away when Obi-Wan again has another crack at Maul. At several times during their duel in the Clone Wars, he attempts to go for the Sith Lord's legs. even attempting a Mo-Ki. But Maul is able to avoid them, jumping over them, and delivering a rough kick of his own. Maul even recognizes Obi-Wan's ruthless blade work and starts goading him by talking about how he gutted Qui-Gon Jinn. Maul is able to sense Kenobi's rage, a rage which has been slowly cooking by the fires of the Clone War.
So GCW is taking another L here by being inaccurate to Obi-Wan at the time. Would that be accurate to say? I think I can say that. The whole bringing Maul back thing's a bit odd anyway. Like, of course, he already knows he chopped him in half. Actually, that really shows either Maul's progression or how bad Kenobi's progression or how bad Maul is in TCW.
Kenobi would later write about the Clone Wars changing the Jedi and how it even changed him, causing him to compromise his own morality and choices concerning mercy. This even continues during his second duel with Darth Maul and Savage Opress. After Savage brutally murders Adi Gallia, Obi-Wan gives into his rage again and kicks Savage down before attempting to strike him while he's on the ground. But the move that he tries to do isn't a simple thrust, but instead, he slashes downward with his full blade right at Savage's chest. This
Hey, what's up? How are you doing?
Is a vertical Sai talk, something that is considered a Sith technique, and had Maul not blocked the strike, Obi-Wan would have fully broken the Jedi code in a way which grounds for expulsion. This
Do I have it here? Oh, it says in between ones. One sec. I love Tales from the Empire. It's a really good book.
something that is considered a Sith technique, and had Maul not blocked this strike, Obi-Wan would have fully broken the Jedi code in...
I mean, I don't remember this fight. I've only watched TCW once in 2016.
After Savage brutally murders Adi Gallia, Obi-Wan gives into his rage again, and kicks Savage right at Savage's chest.
But you look at that and you go, what choice did he have, bro?
This is a vertical side talk.
I don't think Kenobi was thinking about, how do I be merciful to these enemies? He was fighting for his life, and during the Clone Wars, there was the whole morality thing, and he still came out as one of the more aligned Jedi with the Orthodox Order at the time, so yeah.
It is considered a Sith technique, and had Maul not blocked this strike, Obi-Wan would have fully broken the Jedi code in a way which grounds for expulsion.
Hang on. Talking about breaking the Jedi code is different to generally acceptable lightsaber combat etiquette, which Maul and Savage Opress would not have followed anyway.
This is far from the worst, though, as we must address the bantha in the room, the triple Mo-Ki that Kenobi performs against Anakin on Mustafar. This is the moment that makes his earlier comment on Mo-Ki much more tragic, but this is actually a fascinating moment, because Kenobi's action was not taken out of rage like before. During his fights against Vader, Kenobi is able to match his gem So using his Surisu, his familiarity with Anakin's style saving his life. But the issue was, he was losing steam while Vader was growing stronger. By the time
I don't mind if you send a link. I've got a playlist here that I've got the link for collaboration on Discord at the moment. So if you it'll be a regular thing that I react to videos at times, and it's actually probably a good idea. I just actually started it today of add the video to the playlist. So if you want to, you can jump on the Discord, which I'll put that there, and you can have a squiz at that if you want to add it onto the playlist, which is here. up a little bit in the HoloNet chat because that's where I started doing it at the moment.
Stopped for the high ground on the beach. It was quite literally the will of the Force. There wasn't much left that he was able to do.
You can send a video in the chat and I'll have a look at it. But yeah, what's been added mostly is Star Wars reaction once the Stupendous wave because we can pick out inaccuracies.
To Vader, because Anakin knew all of Kenobi's moves. Obi-Wan jumped to the high ground and baited Anakin's arrogance, knowing that Anakin would try to kill him the way that he had killed Maul.
If Anakin knew. Like, I guess the story would have gone around of how he defeated the Sith Lord, but...
prove that he was better than his master, and could prove that just as a Padawan Obi-Wan defeated Maul, Vader...
I really wish he would share his source for where he's getting the internal thoughts of Anakin from here.
too would slay Kenobi, but Obi-Wan gave him a warning. The exact move that Obi-Wan was planning was not out of anger, but one of desperation. Vader was unstoppable, and this fight could not continue any longer, or Kenobi would lose.
And Kenobi was not willing to outright kill Anakin even at the end, or Vader at that time. Pre-suit Vader. But he knew that if he had to do something, because otherwise... it's almost even more tragic. Because he couldn't bring himself to kill Anakin, and yet he still defeated him completely and left him for dead. And he thought he would have killed him, but obviously didn't. And then, yeah.
The exact move that Obi-Wan was planning was not out of anger, but one of desperation. Vader was unstoppable, and this fight could not continue any longer, or Kenobi would lose.
And Kenobi was even, at that point, knowing that Anakin would make a foolish decision, because he knew Anakin, well, Vader. He knew what he would do at that moment because of his arrogance and his ego. And so he even tried to talk him out of it to make him see sense, but Pre-suit Vader was too caught up in his anger.
Couldn't bring himself to kill Anakin, so he had to disable him. The Maquis, a move which was said to have no situations in which it was a valid option, became the perfect choice for this specific occasion. Anakin would have never expected Obi-Wan to pull off something like this. Completely disabling Vader was the only way to survive the wrath of the Chosen One, and ensure that his fate was left up to the will of the Force. And so, acting upon the Force, Obi-Wan was actually following the Jedi way in this moment. Of course, from a certain point of view. Beyond this though, Obi-Wan would learn from his mistakes, and his blade work does not have a savage ending. On Tatooine, Kenobi chooses to follow the Jedi way closer than ever, and preserve the Order. He was ruthless when it came to defending Luke and the Lars homestead, but he promised to do it as a Jedi always should. He would actually redeem himself of his harsh ways in the moment where he said he felt the greatest draw towards the dark side. There was a time when the Tusken Raiders were threatening the Lars home, and Kenobi was of course at their defense. But in that moment, he felt his strongest pull to the dark side that he had ever felt in his entire life. All of the emotions of Order 66, the betrayal of Anakin, the loss of his own master, and all of the trauma of the war came rushing out like a broken dam. He wanted nothing more than to give in, to let loose, cutting down each and every Tusken Raider, the same way Anakin had once done. But in a valiant moment of true light side courage, Kenobi steeled himself away and brought his mind back from the brink of the dark side.
I'm pretty sure that's in the novel Kenobi, and that just shows how he's different to Anakin, and even the example Jedi of who embodies the Order the best at the time does cause things, does feel tempted, but then resists them because he chooses to be a Jedi and not fall to the dark side. Which I don't think any of the examples of what he was saying were very strong examples of him having dark ways much before, or being particularly malicious in intent. Because there's also the side of like, yes, he was angry when Qui-Gon died and he beat Maul, but then he would have also died if he didn't do what he did.
Instead, the Jedi cut their Gaddafi sticks in half and began cutting gashes into their clothing. In Tusken culture, it was disgraceful to show bare skin, so Obi-Wan began cutting their clothes, and the Tuskens began to retreat for fear of shame. From that point onward, the Tuskens began spreading the tale of the powerful wizard who defeated an entire tribe without killing a single one of them. Their fear of this legend from this point on kept all of the Tuskens from ever bothering Luke in the Lars homestead. So in the end, Obi-Wan showed the true nature of the Jedi, showing mercy with his lightsaber, proving that although the Jedi may be gone, the Jedi way would live on in Kenobi. So, tell us, my friends, had you ever noticed how savage Obi-Wan was in lightsaber combat? If not, does it surprise you how often he broke the Jedi code? And let us know in the comments down below your thoughts. Ever noticed how savage Obi-Wan was in lightsaber combat? If not, does it surprise you how often he broke the Jedi code? And
when did he break the Jedi code? When he was still a Padawan, when he defeated Darth Maul and he was angry and then struck out in anger. That one time. And then if you're by extension talking about the EU books and things, if you're talking about the doctrine that the Order had at the time of no attachments, he chose to be on Melita/Dan. And he was emotionally attached to the people there, and that's why he stayed. And then he came back because then he had gone through the same sort of thing that Anakin had, in a way, but then chosen to return to the Jedi because of what happened. I don't see using particular lightsaber combat moves as giving into the dark side or breaking the Jedi code. Because of course, you're fighting for your life, but also these are extreme examples of, like, you've got a former Sith assassin, Darth Maul, and you've got this big hunk of stuff. Savage Post probably wasn't that good, let's be honest. But you're gonna kill them anyway.
let us know in the comments down below your thoughts on this, and why he decided to do it frequently to win duels. As always, my friends, thank you so much for visiting the channel, and may the Force be with you, always.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see the point where this breaks the Jedi Code, or where these were particularly forbidden moves. Like, he never said that, he never quoted anything that actually said they were forbidden, just that they were not preferable. And the two examples from the movies show extreme cases. Like, obviously in Revenge of the Sith, it was not going to be a thing where he goes, I'm gonna hold on to all of my morals and values and get... Like, it's the longest sword fight in cinematic history. I still believe that that's the case, unless I'm incorrect. And yet, you have... Yeah, he was probably tired, and I think I remember in the novel that Pre-Suit Vader was only getting stronger with time, so he had to do that, but he also didn't want to kill him, and so it's like he was forced to do that. It's a different scenario anyway. But I don't see where any of these are particularly forbidden moves. Especially, like, okay, let's take the dismemberment thing here as an example. If you needed to get information out of someone you were fighting, there are medical ways to still save that person from death. And if they had a possibility of redemption, a Jedi may still give them the possibility for redemption, but they may need to sever their limbs off. And of course there's cybernetic limbs in Star Wars, so you could easily say, look, you get these cheap cybernetic limbs if you're willing to try and change your way, if we give you a chance. Compared to a quick death. If the Jedi Judgment was that way, that could be an interesting story. But people can't be happy with Obi-Wan being the epitome of the Jedi values at the time, can they?